Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Civic Space TV. My name is Nancy Caroline Ayot, and I'll be guiding tonight's discussion on the inter-university debates. Our theme is the credibility of elections in Uganda since 1961, Uganda's unending quest for free, credible, and fair elections. Since Uganda's first national elections in 1961, the country has gone through different electoral experiences, ranging from competitive multi-party democracy, one-party dominance, military interruptions, and the reintroduction of multi-party politics. Across the decades, the central question has remained the same. Have Ugandan elections been credible enough to deepen democracy? Tonight, 4 brilliant students from Bishop Stuart University will reflect on this question. We'll examine the role of institutions, political actors, and citizens, and explore whether Uganda's journey has brought us closer or further away from achieving genuine, free, and fair elections. Let's welcome our panelists. I will start introducing them from my extreme left, coming in. We have Aineviona Marvin. Aineviona, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
We have Susan Kamukama. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you so much, Nancy, and I'm happy to be here.
We have Arinaitwe Branson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm glad to be here also.
Thank you. Then we have Daphne Ayevari. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Madam Nancy. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So we'll go straight into the historical context, of course. And in looking at the historical context, I would like to pick your brain, Marvin, first. How would you describe the credibility of Uganda's earliest elections in 1961 and 1962?
Well, that is really good. The 1961 elections have a lot of predicaments that were instilled in them. It's so much to describe them, but then it is another thing to also look at those predicaments and how then they have come shaping the entire election system as years have gone by. Well, in 1961, that election was quite sham. I may describe it in that way. And we saw, I think, Kabaka Mutesa take on that election, and we looked at the entire impact of then what happened when they tried to look at the LegCo, that was the Legislative Council, tried to put in a hand where we had the DP and then the UPC, a scramble and petition for most of those seats in that council. So that election had a lot of, I think, violence from what the descriptive nature looks like. And I think it was a bit lacking that understanding of most citizens of the country at that point in time. Well, what we had in that same split is that we also looked at people scrambling for those seats, but then it was the entire citizen nature coming in to fight for the regional representation. So it is basically, looking at the election being sham, but then having an inclusive structure of most citizens coming into that type of election. Well, Mutesa took on power pursuant to that same election, but if we looked at what UPC then expected, or DP what they then expected from that election, was quite different from the expectations and I mean from the reality that then came out from such an election. So now it becomes a little bit different if I do not talk about what then brought the nature of the violence that was then instilled in such an election and how it then shaped the entire politics in 1966 and 1967 when we had Obote, now Milton Obote, coming in. Because at the end of the day, such an election was only looking at elitism, looking at individuals who have had the opportunity to access education system. So only the elites now had that bigger chance to participate in that election. Well, and that is the time when we are now heading in for independence. So the British were wise enough to ensure that only the elites now take in power so that Uganda has a nature of leaders who are then so much more looking at can we have only elite leaders or can we have a system of leadership that only looks at people who have had the advantage of going to school. So it now does not look at what is happening today, because today it's about do you have the money or you do not have the money. So it basically looked at the elitism, and yes, the representation was there, but then what it then shaped in the nearby future in 1966 and 1967, when we then had a different speculation and Milton Obote comes and takes on power simply because he's an elite and takes it on from Kabaka Mutesa, who, yes, might have had a technical advantage of going into these institutions, but did not have that elitism capacity. So the Ugandans by then simply looked at that understanding of, have we had someone who has had that advantage? And I think that is quite so much more speculative, because at the end of the day, leadership is quite different from such an understanding, and it goes beyond have you gone to school. Then it also looks at the shape of delivery. So that election, much as it had a lot of violence, DP and UPC now have to cry over the seats, but I think it was much more looking at, are we elites or are we not? Are we electing elites or are we not putting in other different people?
Thank you, Marvin. I think you've highlighted the introduction of inequalities, or the inequalities that existed before, even from that time. And, you know, this is just an introduction phase, and I know we will expand on this conversation a little bit more. So I would like to introduce you to the conversation, Susan. So I want us to talk about the 1980 elections. So to what extent do you believe that they shaped mistrust in the electoral democracy of Uganda? Trust or mistrust, you know, depending on how you look at it.
Well, for me, I will say it created a lot of distrust in the people of Uganda. Why? Because if you look at elections, I'll first give knowledge about what election means. Election is merely the people choosing their leaders fairly and at free will. But you look at the elections of 1980, they were not at, it was, I cannot even say it was an election. Instead, it was a coup d'etat. So I cannot say that there was an election, yet it was literally a coup d'etat. And obviously, if it's a coup d'etat, people did not take this president who came in on their own will. The president just forced himself on the people, and yet people, I'm sure they didn't have interest in the president, because you look at that election. I am so even hesitant to call it an election, but for purposes of this show, I will say it was not an election as such, and so I cannot really say that people had democracy, because if you look at the definition of democracy as well, it is where people have the power to choose and to choose their leaders and at a free will. But when we look back at 1980, the people didn't have any say in these elections. It was the people at the top. What do they want? Who wants to be the president? You just come and declare yourself a president, just like that. And so people, I cannot really say that there was fair or fair elections or democracy at that point.
Do you believe that, how do you think that it shaped the trend of elections in Uganda from that moment onwards? Do you believe that it had an influence on the next elections and the state of democracy that we're in right now?
Yeah, I think it had a very great impact on the future elections, because at that point, you know, like we always say that the people set examples and set precedents. So it gave Ugandans that precedent of, like, if I feel like I should be the president, it's just a matter of ambushing the government and I will eventually be the president. And if we are to look at it even up to date, the elections are really not fair. People reached a point and they're like, we know what is coming. And that is not what the Constitution would love us to do. Because if you look at the articles of the Constitution, like Article 50, it gives right to the people to vote. And also Article 1 of the Constitution gives the people the supremacy, like the power comes from the people and they should exercise it freely without any force from the others. So I think that those elections really set a bad precedent to the coming elections thereafter the 1980.
Thank you so much. I like that you reference to our current constitution, that clearly provides for the principles, or for some of these principles of civic rights and democracy. So, Bronson?
Yes.
Yes. Well, let's talk about what she just said, military takeovers and, instabilities. So, we know that when the NRM came to power, after the Bush War politics, there was a one-party system. How do you think it affected the credibility of elections thereafter? Because we know at that point, only the National Resistance Council members were able to fully participate. Or I know there are certain people who say that there was an inclusive system because persons belonging to other parties participated. But how do you believe that the NRA shaped the electoral process of Uganda?
Yeah, when you talk about the military inclusivity in the elections, and you bring about how the NRA has influenced the Ugandan elections under a single party, I think inclusivity of people who want to bring different ideologies will have declined when you decide to make it a single party issue.
Yes.
It was until 2005, after introducing the multi-party system, I think, when Ugandans now got a chance to bring their different ideas that differ from what the current government had. We see FDC now coming, we see other parties that had been stopped, like the UPC, now coming again to influence the current, the regime that was there, because the regime did not provide what they thought was right. I have a scenario like Chino Achebe, the literature father, in his novel, A Man of the People. He describes the rule of Chief Nanga, and Chief Nanga's rule was then a replica of what the leader of Uganda back then was, before, still under the NRA from the army. And what they did before, what they fought for before they came to power, is what they are still doing. I have one of my favorite musicians, he once sang and said, "You came to power fighting for what you were opposing, and still, what's current, what you are
Is who we
producing
think he is?
is what you think you are." Because when you are coming to power, you're opposing something, and then later in the day, now you're the very person who is doing that thing. What you opposed, thinking that we are still in the apartheid, because what is it when we are in the elections, there is military involvement, we are questioning the quest for fair and free elections, when we are seeing intimidation, when we are seeing injustice, we are seeing vote rigging, the things that you used to complain about. I take you back to 1980. He was the third in the ranking and complained about
I went to the bush.
vote rigging. He goes to the bush. He now comes promising peace and democracy. He goes to power. You know, he's manipulative. He knows how to play his games and cards. Now, when he comes to power, he's like, now, let's now focus on authoritarian rule. You do what I say.
Because I know best.
Yeah, I know best.
Allow me play devil's advocate a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Mostly because I want to get your perspective. Many people say that the elections, that the NRA system did not improve even after 2005 when multipartyism was allowed, because they say that all the parties that came up were a division of the NRA. So it is only them who had the elite. But right after, even when DP came back and even when UPC came back, they never had the competitive power that the Bush War heroes had. For example, the major political party that came out of that election was FDC. And these were defectors directly from the NRA. So what is your opinion on that?
You know, when you have a family, and from your family, you have a son, you're the father, and you have a son who opposes your actions, that means you as the father have a problem. And now I will take back this regard to the NRA, because majority of the people that came from it, let's look at Kano Kizza Besigye. He thinks the government is not doing what they fought for. He's not satisfied with the actions, and he wants change. But however much he wants change, he forgets one thing, that after this man goes into power, at first he holds the multi-party system with an intention of programming and having enough time to know, you know, for somebody who is well prepared, you have to first plan.
Okay.
So this man plans first, let's hold the party system. Why? We have to focus and see when any challenger comes up, how shall we help ourselves from that challenger? How shall we hold that challenger? What shall we do? This is what this guy does. They say after more than a decade, they introduce multi-party system, giving a chance to the other people who are opposing. Here comes Kano Besigye and other political parties that come into after. They are opposing the man who has now constructed a constitution. He has full power on, because why I'm saying that he has full power on constitution, he's the man who says through his people, let's redesign this constitution. Now, I think these term limits will control my rule. No. I'm old. I'm aging. At my youthful 80, I should go for another term. You see? Let's shift this. Now, Rafael Magezi brings an idea. They enter the parliament. They spread cash. You remember what happened in the Tojikwata 2017? People fight, but however much you fight, he already knows he has majority seats in the parliament. That is what I was saying before. Better planning. He planned ahead of everything.
It's like how you've planned ahead, because you're now preempting our future conversation.
and may I engage a little bit? I think the entire concept of having a constitution is majorly to govern a country.
Yes.
Now, I think in 1994, when the Constituent Assembly was put in place, one of the people that were on it actually is a very, very veteran politician, Miriam Matembe. I watched one of her shows here, and she was basically talking about how this constitution was brought into place, even when you had to celebrate its 30 years in existence on 8th, I think. The major concept of the constitution is to put out a legal framework. Different from what he's saying. Now, the constitution, actually Uganda's constitution, I think I've had the privilege of reading most of these constitutions in Africa. And Uganda's constitution is one of the best when it comes to putting in place the legal framework of how a country should be governed. And it is very much clear. So the constitution is very clear, and it also has amendment clauses. So there is also a chance to amend such a constitution when the legislators are okay and they feel, even when they were, I think when they were amending it, none of them was of unsound mind. Like this constitution is very much clear, and it has a proper, legal framework. When they were amending Article 102B in 2017, I think they looked at what we normally call the mischief rule. Why was then this article put in place? And why was there a need to have this article in place? So I think the constitution is very clear. The legal framework is also very clear. And even when it goes back to who has influenced the amendment, and they talk about cash being brought at these different citizens, it still goes back to, do they have the power to amend the constitution, and are they doing it with sound mind? Because you certainly do not have any evidence that there's cash put in place to amend some of these clauses. And I think, or articles, and I think the government was very wise to make sure that that constitution is in place. But what the problem now, or the predicament at hand, is on implementation. It does not go back to whether we have the laws or we do not have the laws, or who has more power of the laws. So I was actually having a conversation with one of them yesterday, and they're like, now the EC is appointed by President Museveni, who is the president, and even if it was any other president. But then I simply asked, whom do you actually feel should appoint the EC? They're like, the judiciary. The same judiciary, pursuant to the constitution we have, is appointed by the Judicial Service Commission, by the president, with the help of the Judicial Service Commission. So there is no much more difference.
Thank you. Before you preempt everything we're going to say, future conversations,
yes.
I would like you to think about this question, so that when I come back to you next, you give us. During Amin's rule, which is described as the most dictatorial rule, he also had laws.
Yes.
Were they legitimate?
Yes.
Okay.
There is legitimacy and legality. Those are two different things. Okay. We are sorry. we are sorry, Daphne, that we got carried away with the conversation. But having listened to what everyone has said, how do you describe the pattern of elections in Uganda? What patterns do you see reoccurring since 1961? And yes, what patterns do you see reoccurring since that moment until today, even in the elections that are ongoing today?
Okay, thank you for that good question. When we look at the part of elections, Uganda has been having elections being carried out. Sincerely, the elections that I think have been legitimate from the time they have started having elections, I think starting from 2001, I think elections have been happening in Uganda, apart from the question you asked from Susan, where we had a government that came in through a coup d'etat. Meaning, if they came in through a coup d'etat, it was not democracy. First of all, she introduced what democracy is and showed you how people are supposed to look for their leaders or choose their leaders according to their own will. So, if you look at the elections that have happened since 2001 till to date, even the ones that are upcoming, we have always had the same problems coming back again and again, meaning these are very sensitive issues that we must look at. First of all, we have a problem of vote rigging. That is a problem that has been brought up several times. So remember in 2001, Dr. Civic was against Dr. Kaguta Museveni, His Excellency. Yes, His Excellency. So what happens after the elections? Civic takes a step and appeals to the Supreme Court, and he's like, the elections were not free and fair, meaning the results that are out are not true. Meaning they sat as a bench and it was a split ballot, meaning there are some who accepted that the elections were not fair and some accepted the elections were fair. But as the president who is already in place, remember these appeals come after even the president has sworn in, meaning the people who are in charge of the judicial commission or whatever, among the judges or what, these are people appointed by the president himself. Therefore, even though it comes out that the truth is that the votes were rigged, then they still have no point of objection. They will still stand on their point that the president won. So what is another problem that we are facing that people are complaining about? These days we have the military involvement in the elections. The question that should come in our mind is it right for the police or the military to get involved in the elections? Yes. At some point it is right, and at some point it's not right, depending on what they are doing according to the powers they are given. For the police, we won't stand there and see We won't stand there and see people fighting at polling stations just because we don't want the police to get involved. According to the Police Act, it is provided for them to always keep law and order, meaning they have to keep peace amongst people in different genres as long as it is something that concerns the state and we are looking at people's human rights not being violated. That is a right to life and freedom from torture and different things that come with it. So the police won't stand there. So therefore, that gives credit to the police and the military to get involved in these elections. So what is the different part of it? When Bobby Wine, just Chagulani, comes in with his political party in the recent elections, we see people being abducted. Scenarios like those were there. Some people were arrested and even crimes that have been put on them. Some are true, some are not true. But basically the people who have gone missing, we don't find out why are they missing and where are they detained. As the Constitution, it provides for that for someone to be detained or arrested, they should be put in a place that is legalized by the law. Meaning we should know where those people are held and there is a 48-hour rule. Meaning those people are supposed to appear before court before 2 days elapse. But we have not seen these things do happen in Uganda. So that leaves the question of military involvement being good or bad. But on this side, it is bad because people out there, those families that are producing these people that are involved in these very elections, supporting their particular party, which is a right to them. They have a right to express themselves and choose a party which they want. Since it is provided for that everyone has a right of freedom and a right to express themselves. So it is not in order for the military or the police to come in and then try to abduct those people and put them in scenarios where we don't understand what is coming about them. So if these are the loopholes that are there, what we are looking at, I think basically we should look at what should be done in the coming elections to make elections credible in Uganda. So about the credibility of elections in Uganda, when you look at scenarios, of course we cannot count votes according to the people that have turned up for the maybe nomination, whatever stuff that happens. Of course the numbers are large because there are some people who don't have what to do and of course they'll come to get involved in such stuff. So we can't count the votes or we can't think that this one has won because he had a good turn up of people when they were being nominated or whatever. So it comes back to the voting. When we go to those different local areas, for example, everyone has their local area where they hold elections. We know different scenarios that have come up. According to the scenarios that have come up, people are complaining that even some of the ballots come when they are ticked, meaning that takes away the right of what? Of democracy and the choice of the people to look for a leader whom they want, which is provided for by Article 1 of the Constitution, giving them the sovereignty to look for their leaders on their own will. So if that is always happening, therefore, Marvin talked about the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission, the chairperson himself is chosen by the we look in the executive coming into those things. The executive includes the president. The president appoints the judges who are on the Judicial Commission, and these are the people who bring out the Electoral Commission. These are the people working within the same school. For example, I cannot go there and talk ill about my boss because tomorrow I'll not get where to eat. So meaning, even after even after these things have happened, it all goes to what should be done. For example, who should choose the Electoral Commission?
Thank you, Daphne. I want to stop you there because you're also preempting the next conversation. Okay. Marvin, you had something to add to the discussion. What was that?
Yeah, I heard what Daphne submitted. And basically, of course, she was talking about why we have military in elections, why we have police engaged. And I do not know, I think if we've addressed our minds to Article 208, that of course institutes the military to have that protection to the territorial jurisdiction of Uganda. And of course, it does not go back to only the military. Even the police has a key role to protect its people. And these are institutions of security. I do not know if the definition of protecting people has since changed from what we actually think here today. because in any case, you know, the word election in our local language, I do not know whether whether
I
it
thought
is
you were going to interpret it.
whether it is allowed, but it simply means that people are making noise, if I may just interpret what that word means in Unyakole. So it simply means
Okutera akaruru.
it simply means that there is so much more, a lot of violence, a lot of people being so much more engaged, people wanting results, people are so much more on fire. So there is need for security measures. It still goes back to I think whether we should have police at polling stations for purposes of protection. So unless that's why I say that unless the definition of protection has changed, and we do not need police at on these polling stations,
I
then
need
we
to
are,
interject. I
yeah.
need to interject. So, of course, by law, police is necessary to keep law and order in the polling stations. We know that. However, the question is on the presence of the military and whether the amount of force that is used is reasonable. Is the force reasonable? It's not about their ability to protect, but it's whether or not the force is reasonable. Please go ahead.
Yes, I think that is true. On one instance, of course, you cannot agree on every other aspect. But where military is needed, I think, is where there is violence that is going to sprout so much. And that is when military is needed. I do not agree with the current government putting out trucks on roads like to threaten people because we are threatening, we want results. For example, in Tungama district, the other primary election, we saw military on ground simply because there was so much more violence from the incumbent member of parliament, Mr. Gerard Karuhanga. Like it became so much more violent. So that's when military then comes in, when there is going to sprout a lot of violence in regards to also threaten the national security. But with the current government, it has certainly put it on board. Trucks of UPDF are on roads, even when we are not seeing threats. I do not know, I'm not so much more a security person, but that goes so far beyond. But one thing I believe in is we need security on these polling stations because we certainly know what can happen at any point in time.
All right, Susan, do you have an interjection?
Yeah, I would like to actually, I don't know who to support, but I will differ from my colleague here because we are looking at the army and police. I believe when we are having elections, police is enough because no one is going to fight. We are just going to make a small tick, a very small, smart tick. So I don't need to pull anyone's neck. I don't need to fight anyone to do that. However, we forget that the army, some of us are traumatized, by the way. Once you see those people in those clothings and then they are holding whatever they are holding, you be like, okay, I think something is going to come up. You get, and people are traumatized there. They will not. Some of them will be like, I can't go for elections because what if they shoot me and I die? And we've seen these things happen. And seriously, I cannot sacrifice my life because I'm going to vote someone. I cannot. But the difference we should get is which security do we need at that particular time. There is no point in bringing the army. I believe during elections, because we can never know what all the people, the intentions of all the people, but we should look at the army being on standby in case of anything. They can come, but not parking their trucks around, moving around, looking at people. Like, people have trauma. And if I take you back to the previous elections, especially those before the 1995 Constitution, you look at all of them being full of bloodshed, intimidation, everything was happening. Everyone does whatever they want because most of the people then would just take over government because under coup d'etats. And so someone is having, we are looking at those old people who were there by then, though who were not there, but those who were there by then, getting used to this kind of violent life. Or during elections we shall have to fight, those things. But it's not the essence of elections. It should be peaceful, fair and democratic. So I don't agree with all these things of bringing the army. The army is only necessary where there is violence that the police cannot handle. And And I believe people still, no one wants to fight every time. So I believe it's just intimidating. It brings about very many questions when we look at the army there. What do you mean? And we all know that the army, as the army, you cannot be against the ruling government. You get? So once we see the army, even if there is not going to be vote rigging and all that, we presume that because we are humans, we will be like, I think they brought the army because they want to whatever, to take the votes and all that, or maybe they've come with the already ticked boxes. We look at all those things. We are just human beings, so I think it's not necessary as such. However, to add on Daphne's submission, she was talking about the reflection on all the elections we've had. Me, I still stand on my point that before, I think, the 1995 Constitution, we did not have elections. They were all coup d'etats. So we cannot call them elections. Seriously, it doesn't make any sense. Because if you look at the definition of election, it is totally different from what was happening back then. And then when you look at democracy, which is also, for reference, it is defined by the Black's Law Dictionary, where people vote their leaders freely, and they have the right to belong to any party. But when you look at the 1880, there was nothing like parties. You look at the Kabaka Mutesa's regime, there is nothing like a party. Obote came and wanted to bring the party. Before we knew it, Amin is here fighting, being very dictatorial. And then before we know it, Obote is back. And then, like, there is a lot of confusion. We don't know if there is a party or nothing. It's just an individual ruling. You get? So I don't really call those elections. However, after the 1995 Constitution, we can say there was elections, but there was no democracy. Because democracy, it should be free. Everyone should have a right to choose. Because me, I will never, I'm just saying this, I'm not saying I cannot do it, but that's what someone will be like. I will never coordinate with a leader that I did not send to parliament. What are you telling me? I didn't vote for you. What are you telling me? So you realize votes have been rigged all the time. There has been violence. Boxes disappear and appear all the time during elections. We don't know, like, if we are really using the same boxes that are supposed, like, we...
Thank you very much, Susan. Branson, you had an interjection. Is it the same as Susan's, or it differs a little bit?
I want to differ both from Susie and Mevin. First of all, I want to correct Susan. Uganda, however much, I'm a Ugandan who is a sad Ugandan. But
what does that mean?
that really means I want to show you how sad I am.
Yeah.
When you talk about democracy and you say Uganda has no democracy, there you are lying. I said the man planned everything. There is democracy. If at your age you haven't gone to any polling station to cast a ballot, then you do not know what democracy means. You have gone, you have that right to go and choose your leader. But is your vote respected? That should be your question.
Would that...
Can I answer that?
That should no.
Can I answer that?
It is. Let me first help you. Then to Mevin, you are talking about military inclusion, and you are forgetting one thing. We are under army rule. He comes into power with 27 guns. This is what you are forgetting, guys. I think Ugandans should adapt to new normal living, because when we do not have any organization, by the way, I'm glad Civic Space has come to teach to the people what their rights are, how we can criticize institutions, weak institutions who are failed to do their roles, because I am always embarrassed with the thing of military involving themselves in issues that do not concern them. What do you say? Because every time I see the budget allocating funds to the Ugandan police, if the Ugandan police is an institution capable of keeping law and order, but cannot actually keep law and order, and they are asking for help. Do you know why they ask for help? This is an army rule. The son of the president, I'm afraid to speak about it, but the son of the president is the CDF. Yes. They have all rights to do what they want. That is This has been seen in the recent elections. You see, Kawempe elections, got Sembaule. You know what happened there? He mentioned in Tungamo. There is police. Police is given armed vehicles. They are given tear gas every day. I saw them train how to beat people. They buy sticks every day. They can do it. If we have people who are unemployed and can join police, let police do its role. Then, what should the military do? That question will not be replied until the government changes. Because for now, you have to understand the new normal of living, that the military must be, by the way, this should be a reflection. So, sorry, a foreshadow to what's coming. Military must be there. You have seen it. You have seen it. It is still there. When we ask about free and fair, when we talk about free and fair elections, we want to see free and fair campaigns. We want to see people supporting their leaders freely without interruptions. But if you are going to vote and you find a guy holding a gun at the door, you're like, even though I vote, my vote won't count. The respect for the vote is what we are lacking.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Can I interject a little?
I want you to interject with your next submission because it will help us follow through with. So your submission has sparked a lot of debate. Do you have any responses to any of the things that people have said?
To supplement on what they said, as he said, when we see, Susan said, there is a difference between police and the military. Obviously, that is the question that should come. If police is there, we don't need the military there because it will disturb people's minds. For example, in our minds, we already know there has been vote rigging. Even if it happens in the coming elections, there has been vote rigging, and the government in power is the one to stay there because people even no longer vote. So that brings us to the question of the voter turn-up. Why do we have people? Brenton said that people do not, at Susan's age, she hasn't gone to a polling station to vote, yet she has the right to vote. Why doesn't she come? There are people who are there who have a right to vote and they are capable of voting, but they feel like even if they vote, their vote does not matter. The winning party is already there. So, what question should we have in the coming future? Should we have the military stay, or the police should stay, or it's enough for us to handle our elections with one of the parties? Then, if voting is a right, what should the government do in order for the people to turn up for voting? Or about the question of valuing your vote, then it all rotates about that, which will be answered, I think, in the coming sessions.
Yes, thank you so much. The students of Bishop Stuart University discussing the credibility of elections since 1961. We've already preempted the conversation on the involvement of the military. Please join us again in our next session. Now, let's take a break.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back. We're still talking about the credibility of elections from 1961 in Uganda under the theme Uganda's unending quest for free and fair elections. Marvin.
Yes.
Let's talk about institutions and electoral management. We have been having discussions, the army, but we know that there is a body that is tasked with governing elections in Uganda, the Independent Electoral Commission. So, would you say that the Electoral Commission has done its job in ensuring credible, free and fair elections? And with concerning the Electoral Commission, how can the judiciary help the Electoral Commission in ensuring this, especially with all the complaints of vote rigging, but also voter intimidation, voter bribery, and the like?
Yeah. Now, this question, I think, is quite broad. Now, I'm just going to look at it in, I think, 3 segments. I may call them teammates. But in whichever way, I want to start with the election of, was it 2005, 2006 or 2001, where we had Paul Semogere, where we had Museveni rank 3rd. The election, I think, 1980. Yeah, I think 1980. So the 3 political parties bring their people on board. They elect these people. And now, the EC then, I would want to call it that, gives different results. I think even the president himself, the president who was on board then, gives different results. And that has since changed after the adoption of the 1995 Constitution. Well, there are so many stakeholders that are so much more involved in election process. Article 59, proposed, I think, from one of the speakers, gives every citizen a right to vote as long as they are above the age of 18. Article 59. Now, Article 60 institutes the Electoral Commission and gives it a special mandate to look at how elections are organized, supervise them, and ensure that even results come out at the end of the day. Now, it would be illogical if someone went to the market and and purchased a long-sleeved and a short-sleeved sweater, and then at the end of the day, when you have to interpret the difference between those 2 sweaters, one is long-sleeved, the other short-sleeved one is like what he is actually putting on. So on arrival, the Electoral Commission is looked at as a long-sleeved sweater. But in inception, or even in implementation, it comes as a short-sleeved sweater. Because at the end of the day, as opposed to what they were actually saying, I only said the military can come on board, where the police has failed to perform its duties. So in the same realm, the Electoral Commission takes its time to organize elections, and even when you ask them, why is the military coming on board, they also do not know how the military then comes at the end of the day, because we've normally seen that even with media houses like NBS covering some of these stories, and you find that the EC itself does not know why the military comes on board. But I think at the point in time, even when you have to look at, I think, is it a clause 2 of Article 60 that talks about the EC being appointed by the president, especially the deputy and the chairperson of that same body. It clearly states, and I would advise my colleagues to also read the same article, because it clearly states, when it comes back to appointment, before we argue on the same, it clearly states that the EC, the chairman, EC, the deputy, and I think the registrar, something like that, is appointed by the president and approved by the parliament. Now, the people who are in parliament are selected by individuals or citizens of Uganda. So it simply means they are representatives of citizens. The approval is done by parliament. And the appointment is done by the president. That simply means, I think it is 2000, what? When the Minister for Portfolio was appointed, and parliament could not agree on Sebagala, because they actually felt that this person could not actually be a proper Minister of Portfolio, and they rejected the same person. The same person was taken away. At the end of the day, just like one of these days when they appointed Jane Francis Abodo as, I think, principal judge, if parliament was not ready to take on Abodo, since she has been DPP and they have been seeing her do certain things, they would have said, we are not okay with this person. And these are representatives of people directly. So at the end of the day, the EC is instituted in that same way. And the EC has done its role, I think, 50-50, because it organizes elections, ensures that there is civic engagement where they go to the villages and teach people how to institute their right or how to enforce some of these rights. And even when that is well done, they go on to also make sure that media houses are involved. The other day we were watching UCC being engaged and telling the media how to cover some of these stories and what they should also look at the end of the day. And I think these are all institutions and stakeholders that are involved in these elections. So these individuals are out there and doing their role. Now, let's now go back to how the judiciary comes in. Now, the judiciary has one key prime role, that where there is need to interpret these laws, then they can do the same. And in elections, particularly, when someone has a petition, you've seen Robert Chagulanyi go to the judiciary seeking for review of how elections have been put on board in 2021. You've seen Tinya Fuza do the same. You've seen Dr. Kiza Besigye in 2006 take on a petition to the Supreme Court on the same. So the judiciary has had its involvement and has done its role. Where they find someone does not have sufficient evidence that elections have been rigged, they ensure that some of these things are explained to the people, and they basically know that that right is there. So if you are not satisfied with an election, then the judiciary is very well open for you. And I think that that right has been enforced. Much as I properly know some of the colleagues will come and say, no, the judiciary is always influenced by certain stakeholders or president or the rest like that. But still, judiciary is an independent body, just like the way the EC is. And at least some of us who have had a chance of understanding how these things work, we go on to look at how best these laws are followed, even when they're instituting some of these cases. The procedures that are followed, you must have sufficient evidence that this election was rigged. I remember in 2005 or 2006, when we actually had Museveni, like Kiza Besigye came out and said, my election was rigged, so we do not agree with the results. Museveni, who was ranking first that same election, came and said, I am also not satisfied with the percentage I actually have. So at the end of the day, courts had to adjudicate such a matter regarding all the sufficient evidence. Much as the election, I don't think was repeated, but they had to look at what evidence is presented to look at the results that were then present. Now, we still also go back to, I think I'll take you to the 2021 elections, the elections that we had last time. Now, I think that year, 2021, I was in Kampala, but you would actually see that everyone is on tension, even when you walk on streets, because that is the exact year when you would find people burning tires, putting some atmosphere to citizens. So why wouldn't the military come on board? Because national security has been threatened. That is why the military now comes on board. Because the pursuant to Article 208, military has the right to protect the territorial jurisdiction of a country. So in case that is threatened, then military has to come on board, but not to come directly involved into a voting system. I want us to agree that we are not saying military has to be in elections or on polling stations, but we are saying where there is a threat to national security, like what happened in 2021, it is very clear and evident that no put an atmosphere to these citizens, and then involving the military was a right thing to do. Because should we leave our people to die? There were street bullets on streets simply because people would threaten even the police. You see people vying to beat the police at the end of the day. So should we leave our country get into such a moment of despair when we have a military that is very well active, that is going to Somalia and doing other things than protecting its territorial jurisdiction, which is the prime role for the military? I think it is quite important for us to look at some of those aspects and not take them to be smaller things. But I think it is also important to note that these institutions, yes, might not have worked the expectations of people, but have worked the expectations of the legal framework that is well instituted in the Constitution and has met the expectations of the laws that are in the Constitution. Because at the end of the day, if Article 1 of the Constitution talks about sovereignty of the people, and people go to polling stations and cast their vote, that simply means they have come to agree with that right. Number two, if Article 59 clearly states the right to vote, it simply means that by the time the Electoral Commission puts it out there, that it's time for voting, we've done civic engagement, this is the time like what you're going to do in 2026, they have satisfied some of these things, but not to the expectations of the people. And most of the times, it clearly disturbs us when it comes to how some of these laws are implemented. The implementation scale, I think, is a bit low, much as the laws are present. So I think that is the direction we should take. The institutions are doing well, but the questions are still going back to the scale of implementation.
Thank you so much, Marvin. Thank you. Thought-provoking discussion, yes? Okay, Susan, I'll bring you in to talk about inclusivity and participation in terms of how credible a democracy is. We know, just as we know in a democracy, we need everyone involved. A government of the people, for the people, by the people. So, considering the different identities of people, women, ethnic minorities, persons with disability, youth also, which has become a very big conversation in today's time. Do you believe that the elections have been inclusive of all the marginalized communities? But also, does it reflect in voter turnout?
Well, thank you for the question. And I think that inclusivity is there to some extent. However, not fully as it should have been, and also not fully according to the laws of Uganda, because if you look at the laws of Uganda, they are very, very inclusive. Actually, as Marvin said earlier, I don't think there is any law in Africa that is more inclusive than the laws of Uganda, especially the Constitution. It provides for everyone, different age groups, different sexes, different tribes, like everyone is catered for. But however, the sad part about it is they are in writing and not in implementation. So the inclusivity, I'll go straight from the back then. I don't think there was much inclusivity back then, because we look at the leaders that we had then, they were more of dictators and rather than the democratic kind of leaders. So I would say back then there was not much inclusivity, because we look at regimes where there were no multi-parties. The president would choose the people he's going to rule with. So I cannot say that back then there was inclusivity. But however, with the 1995 Constitution, I recommend that for I recommend the current government for that, because there has been more inclusivity of everyone in the 1995 Constitution rather than the constitutions before it. So I would begin with the inclusivity of the majority. Right now, we can say there is inclusivity because we are looking at very many parties. We have the NRM, we have the NUP, we have the FDC, we have all these parties, and all these parties have people that subscribe to them, and also there is no one that is forced to belong to any of the parties. You choose, it's at free will. Apart from those few things, obviously there can never be anything that is 100% correct or right, but we are looking at everyone having a right. You either choose to belong to a party or you choose not to belong to a party. This takes me to his conversation earlier, saying that someone of my age was not going to a polling station and all those things. For your information, I've been to a polling station, and yeah, it shouldn't be like I know my rights. I know my rights to vote, and obviously, when the leaders come up in my area, I always know the leader I would prefer to take over the seat. So I have done that. However, what limits us? I've not been there for more than one time, Because I mean, I went there, we voted, and
Because
the
of
results.
the age requirement.
Yes, because of the age requirement. However, the results are not what we expected. And it wasn't like we didn't expect them because it was, fair, the other part. No, it was, there was some screwing and unscrewing of some things. So we look at the inclusivity of the people, the turn up. The turn up is very minimal, especially in villages. Because one, that these people are not informed of their rights, and that is upon the government to bring these laws closer to them. However much the law tells us ignorance of the law is no defense, we cannot say that someone who is illiterate will go ahead to look for a constitution and read this constitution. And the constitution itself also mandates the lawmaking body to interpret these laws to every language. We have very many languages in Uganda, and so the law mandates the lawmaking body to translate the constitution to every language so that all the people actually get to understand what is, because not everyone, you realize Uganda, we have some, I don't want to misguide people, but we have a high level of illiteracy because people are not educated. So we could blame it on them not knowing the law, but we look at the people we are dealing with. You cannot set standards of people, of the educated, yet the majority of your people are not educated. So you have to look at which audience are you serving. Are you serving the educated or the uneducated? So it is upon the government to go down to that level that it will implement these laws, make the people known to these laws through there are very many circles and all those groups in villages. So I believe the government has to do that, to go back down there and tell these people about their rights to vote, what is the importance of voting and all those things, because it really matters. You don't expect someone to do something they don't know. They will eventually stay home. They have gardens to go to, so they will eventually not turn up for so that limits the inclusivity of the people. And also another thing, people don't know the procedure you have to follow or what you have to do in order to vote. Because you cannot vote if you're not in the yellow book. You cannot vote when you're not in the register. Someone will ask you, what is the register? What is the yellow book? Not because they don't want to know, but because they have not been informed about these things. And people are like, no, especially the people responsible, be like, no, we've actually informed people. But you're informing people on TV. How many people own TVs? How many people listen to radios? You're informing people on TV, and there is someone back there who cannot even operate a Mapesa phone. So you look at the audience, which category are you targeting? Are you targeting only the people in schools and the people in Kampala and the people who have acquired some education, or we are looking at everyone? There is the constitution doesn't talk about we should go with the majority. It talks about all the people, and all the people means everyone, whether illiterate, whether what. We have to look at all those groups. And I think that also the inclusivity of the people is also minimized. We've talked about it a lot. I don't really want to go around it every time. The polling station situations. You realize, me going for the elections, I was like, can I say it was, yes, I knew I had the right to vote, but we went there and we found people dressed in the army outfits, and then they are covered, the faces are covered up to they are having, I don't know if they are I don't know, missiles or something, not bulletproof, those, how they call bombs or something. And they are all swinging all over. They have armors and all those. They are carrying very heavy guns and all those things. I was like, wait, are we at war? And it was Marvin earlier said people in Kampala were burning our tires. The town was very peaceful where I was going to vote. No one was. Actually, people were going, they vote, but some of them were scared by those people, because we have different. Some of us grew up, we'd be like, you hear someone of the army, you scatter, you run for your life. So you look at these things, especially in villages, people are intimidated of these things. They see these things on TV. So once they see them in real life, they're like, oh, we are cooked.
Allow me interrupt you a little bit. In such an environment, for example, a marginalized group like women, what would you think, how do you think that affects their participation?
Well, I think for the women, I really don't want to be like they've not been given opportunity, because we have been given opportunity in every aspect. The girl child, the women, and we have really been given the opportunity. And it is so vivid that even in the current government and all that, there are very many women that are having very big positions. So I really think they have been given chance to go out there and give out their views. They have, I believe, not to say I'm on the gent side, but
there is no side.
yeah. But I feel like in this government, we've really been given chance to bring out our views. There are very many TV shows that bring out women. We are like, there is.
Do they reflect in law and policy and in terms of participation?
Yeah, they do reflect a lot. They are everywhere. That's all I can tell you, because we are looking at them. If I cannot, if I'm to mention them, we shall not leave the place. So they are everywhere. They are in the law. They are in the judiciary, the executive. They are in the parliament, and even on the on ground in the very small villages, there are women holding positions. So I believe there has been people have been brought on board in this aspect. However, not fully, because of those small things that have come up and have denied people the chance to give their opinions. But I cannot say it has not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Susan. Branson,
Yes.
you've been itching to talk. you have views, you have burning views, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as you present your views, why don't we talk about contemporary reflections and the future, for example? Looking at the elections since 2006 and the multi-party system, and, everyone has said, our laws are working. Institutions, Marvin said institutions are working, right? Susan said there is inclusivity, there are women on board. So do you believe that under this multi-party system since 2006, the credibility of elections have been reflected? But also, do you think that drawing from what everyone has submitted, we have a good future to actually have truthful conversations about the status of elections in this country?
When I'm to start with the first question about belief, I believe my belief does not actually align with my emotions. But okay, sparking from my rage, let me first give.
From your rage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me first. I'm sorry, I have overused this relevancy, but allow me to use it again. I love Chino Achebe so much, and in his A Man of the People, he foreshadowed whatever is happening right now. The ending of that prayer or story, at the end we see a coup d'etat. A government is overthrown by use of guns, and so that gives a picture of what is happening now. The government we are living in came from the bush. The ruling government came from the bush using guns. So my belief, let me first answer the next answer, then I will get to my belief.
Yes,
now,
please.
when we come to elections and the future, what is coming to the future? She has talked about the inclusivity of women in anything. He has talked about the institutions. He talked about the EC. Yeah, I was happy when he said that the Electoral Commission is an independent party, but he forgot one thing. The head of the EC, the chairman of EC, is called Justice Byabakama. He has a political party he's in. I wish you knew that political party. You would know that who heads that political party is the current ruling president. And also a friend. So what we are forgetting, yes, institutions are there. Yes, they are independent, but we are forgetting the virtue of morality and the significance of service delivery. We forgot the essence of elections. She is saying about inclusivity of women. Yes, women have been given positions. Women at every district we have a woman leader, a woman MP at every district. That can already give you a picture that women are everywhere. But do you question yourself why we aren't seeing any woman leader this time around coming to contest against the president? Why is lost for hope? One thing that makes a voter lose hope is violence, intimidation, and poverty. He talked about people from her village, how they do not care anymore about the elections. And it gives a bad picture to what's coming in future. Because do you know why these people do not turn up? Yes, I will first appreciate the fact that EC has done a great job. Yes, it has sensitized, but to a smaller extent. However much it sensitizes, but to the people at the local setting, do not want the sensitization anymore. You know, when something is continuous, at some time it becomes boring. People are bored. They want to see something new. What they are seeing is the common story. You expect to find at a polling station, you expect to find military. You expect to know that you will be beaten. You expect to know that during times of election, more than 5 people will die. During times of election, you expect that JAT will abduct more than your relatives and any person who will speak ill against the government. These are the things that were happening during Amin's time. The things that happened during Obote time, 1980 to 1985, when he was still in war. The things we fought against, they are the things we are passing through. So when you ask me that question about the future, I actually feel that there should be a sense of morality rejuvenated back in the people who are in offices. Offices like the judiciary, arms like the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive himself. Let's start with the EC. What should the EC do? If it is to implement services, let it focus on the sovereignty. Let it focus on the democracy. What is democracy? Who is the government? The government is for me and for you. This is their government too. It's not their leader's government. So what you forget to do today will either affect us, the children that have grown, seeing what is happening, their grandkids, their great-great-grandkids, and the future coming. On a sad note, you sometimes say the man is growing, and soon we shall be hopeful that he will live for something. But I don't understand, you ask yourself, like what Achebe left to us. When he leaves, what will happen? That should be okay. That should be the question inside you. Back to the belief. There we say I don't believe. I don't believe in anything better ahead for what I am seeing right now. If we do not change the mentality of letting everything become free and fair, how? Let's include media. Support the media industries, the media houses, sorry. Let them capture everything. Not that some media houses must capture this. I follow some media house. I don't want to mention their names here. Some media house, they are They are pro-government houses, I think, because they capture what they think we should be seeing. And there is another TV station, it captures what we never knew that was there. But when you look at it, the absurdity included in it, you feel like crying at the moment, because this is what we want to see, not the picture they want us to see. We want to see what is really happening. Media inclusion. Again, EC and the Constitution now. Let me talk about the Constitution. Thank God we have the CCG, and they are now celebrating their 30 years. I would love to see the Constitution respected, not disrespected again, with intention, because now you see the man is growing old. We might have any amendment again any time from now, like any person to rule next should come from my lineage. And we shall pass that bill, by the way. Because do you know why? He said we have the parliament that passes the law, but he forgot about the majority. The majority decision makers. In the parliament, there are seats. Opposition cannot beat the government right now, because it is the minority, and you can't beat the majority. When the majority uses manipulative tactics, their guys are cunning. They use money. And if you want to beat a struggling Ugandan, you have to involve money in issues like elections. But I'm glad for the president has helped us to know we have rights to vote, because at a village level, I too have participated in more than. But let me tell you my first experience during elections. It's not that I wanted to go vote that person. No, they are giving huge sums of money, and by then I was broke. So, as a Ugandan youth who is poor, this happened of recent on the check. The people who were designated to go and vote, guys had gone for business. They had gone to insert something in their world. Struggle for survival. You must be smart, and you must be an opportunistic person who knows where to win from. But is that what we want for the next generation? The future, is the future bright? Are we aiming at the greater good? What do we see? What do we see?
Thank you, Branson.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that submission. The time we've had is fast spent. So now I'll be coming to the last question. And here I want to bring you to the conversation, Daphne. We've had people talk about other political players, government, army, other players in elections, and the institution of the Electoral Commission. Let's talk about political parties and their role, but also what should be done for Uganda to have credible, free, and fair elections in 2026.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And when we talk about the different political parties and how they have influenced the elections or the credibility of elections in Uganda, or what comes about is this. The moment you don't have someone to criticize what you're doing, you can never know the loopholes in what you're doing. That is the first thing we must know as people here. For example, if President Civic has been in power and no one has come up to stand against him totally, the people will always think that he's good. Whatever he's doing is very good. They would not see the other side of him and know that maybe we should be having this on board so that it helps us in this other way. The same way, the way Bobby Wine and other political parties are coming up, the way they have come up, we couldn't be here, because if Museveni was the only leader here, we wouldn't be here talking about anything, because we would believe he has done it all. Like, we are satisfied with what he has done because he has no one to criticize him. But the moment political parties come, we look at this side of it, we see that this one has done this, but he has failed us here. So we try to understand what should be done. Okay, it opens our minds broader to look at what should be done instead of what he's doing. Or is what he's doing sufficient enough to make us live comfortably in this particular state? Then, when we come to the different problems we've been having in the elections and what solution that should be brought out, we should look at the issue of the Electoral Commission being independent. As he said, the current president or chairperson of the Electoral Commission belongs to a political party. if you're in a position where you're handling different political parties that are all in the same game, we believe you should be impartial, meaning you should not have a side. The moment you have a side, that takes it as it is something that is very vivid, that the side you're supporting must win. So what should be done? The Electoral Commission, Mr. Marvin said, the Electoral Commission is independent. I will say that according to the provisions of the law, the Electoral Commission is independent. But what is in status quo? That is what we are trying to look at. If the judiciary is being chosen by the Judicial Commission, while the Judicial Commission has been put up by the President himself, then they will look for their person, meaning that will be an issue that is affecting us as citizens, even after we voted, as long as this person is still siding with the other people or has a part to fall within, then we shall not have what we want. So we need the independence of the Electoral Commission. How? Let the Electoral Commission maybe be chosen by the people, literally. Because if we choose the Electoral Commission ourselves, we shall be sure that, and actually that people to contest on that position should actually come on independent positions, knowing that they don't belong to any party. We know that they are independent, they are impartial, so when they come to serve, either chosen, when one wins, they are acting neutral. They are on a neutral ground in that they don't have a side to which they belong. Talking about education, voting education and civic engagement with the people on the local area. Susan told you people in that area are no longer interested in going for these elections because of the things that have always come up. So what should be done? She told you most people, even some, don't afford these smaller phones. Even some people don't have radios. Even schools have been put up. But me, there is no day I went to school since primary and they were telling me that elections are supposed to be, we have not had vote education or what. Even if I may ask, when did you last see a person come to your doorstep, ask you, tell you that elections are like this, they are handled like this, we are going to register you like this, and when you come to vote, you're supposed to do this? I don't believe it has been done at any point in time. But Marvin says institutions have done their job. Yes, they have done some of their jobs they have laws that provide for their jobs, but have they effected their jobs as provided for by the law? That is the question in point. So if we don't, so what should the government do? The government should put up, or the Electoral Commission that is independent should put up. We have many unemployed youth. People have gone to school, they don't have jobs. These are the people, if this opportunity came and calls were there for these people to come and carry out vote education, it is something that does not involve you to put in money, because the Electoral Commission itself, the government itself, will provide those funds for you to go and educate people about voting. That will help us solve the problem of people having limited knowledge about elections, and we shall have a high voter turnout. That has solved two problems in status quo. So what other problem do we have? Military and police engagement in elections, which has intimidated people and stopped them from turning up for elections on ground. So how will that problem be solved? One, the government can put in place, maybe since the police is there, its role is to keep law and order. And I believe the police is not brutal as long as the police is impartial. But I believe in the police these days, what we have in status quo, the police is brought up by the government itself, meaning they follow the orders of the high person in rank. So what should be solved? We are not leaving these people out from the right of having a sense of belonging or a sense of expressing themselves or belonging to a different particular party. We are not stopping them. But this is a game where we need credible elections, where people want the outcomes of what they have put in. For example, I will not come and always vote. And actually, when I go back to education, voter education, people are poor. That is one problem we are facing. The standards of living are very poor. And as a state, we don't have enough funds. We are a developing country. That is the problem we still have in status quo. So what problem do we have? illiteracy. Even when the schools have built, the government claims they have put up schools, but how many people go to those schools? That is the same questioning point. And even after they have gone to schools, do they teach them about elections or what comes out of elections? That is not taught. And even after, actually, if a child like that one has gone to a government school, when they come, they turn the age of voting. Trust me, that person will vote the government. But still, if we have standards of living that are very poor, meaning we have poor minds, meaning everything I see, I will always want money. We have these people in society whereby someone cannot even offer a service if there is not even something that is offered to them. They cannot serve you as long as there is no money. This has destroyed our minds, whereby we are not having leaders that are competent, but we are either having leaders who have given us money coming on board. How does this affect us? We will always ask for roads every day. You're like, we want roads. But remember, this is a person whom you voted out of money, not out of competence. So competence should outshine the point of giving you money. You should teach these people that even after these people have given you money, if I've given you money to be in a particular position, meaning I'm looking for that very money I've given you to replace it. That is the point. But I won't go to government because I've given you my money, you voted me, I've gone into parliament, you expect me to make a loss, come and construct your road, not replacing the money I gave you. Of course, I have to put where I removed. That is the case in point. So people need to have this knowledge of looking at competency of a person who is going into power rather than looking at the profit gains they have gained from this person, because it will affect them at the end of the day.
Thank you, Daphne. We have come to the end of this conversation. I know there is more. I know my panelists have so much more to say. And I know the audience is eager to listen. But this is the time allocated to us. I want to thank all of my panelists for showing up and for delivering as expected. But I also want to thank the studio crew for coming in on a weekend and all of you for watching. It has been the Inter-University Debate. We've had students of Bishop Stuart University. Thank you. Keep the conversation going. Like, subscribe, and also engage with us on our different social media platforms. My name is Nancy Caroline Ayot. I have been your host. Thank you.